Welcome to another episode of Tamara Simon's Live in the Real Estate Power Chat. Today we have Rafael Cortez. This guy is quite an accomplished individual in the real estate space, and we're going to dive deep. So if you want to know more of what you need to do to build your confidence as a real estate professional, you're not going to want to miss this. So stay tuned.
This is Tamara Simon's Live, where real estate agents from around the globe come together to grow, collaborate, and expand their business. Where we take our inspiring conversations and put them together to create dynamic connections. This is the Real Estate Power Chat.
Welcome. Thanks so much for joining me today, Rafael.
My pleasure. Thanks for the invite. It's an honor.
Absolutely. Now you're really an accomplished individual in the real estate space, and you kind of have taken that to a whole new level. So that my audience, if they're not familiar with you, let's tell them a little bit about Rafael.
So I started doing real estate investments actually in 2009. I had another business at the time, not related to real estate. It was a transportation business. And I started doing, I got into the fix and flip space. I used to work construction growing up, during high school, so I knew how to swing a hammer. I was able to put some cash together with my other business, and I wanted to, turn it into something more. So I started doing fix and flips, and in 2009 again, eventually I started wholesaling shortly after that. So I mean, it's been an entire journey. I mean, ups and downs and challenges, and especially from the investor, side of things, right? And then I got my license. I think it was 2013. I got licensed as a traditional real estate agent, so I started doing traditional stuff, and it'll just kind of started coming together, right? One of those things where, okay, this makes sense, and then this makes sense, and then this makes sense, and eventually put together a brokerage, and now here we are. So
that's amazing. So what do you think drove you to be so accomplished, to keep going and building and building and building?
I think we entrepreneurs by nature, we tend to be very curious. And that question of what if I do this, right? It can be a very good thing. Sometimes it's a shiny object, and if we don't know how to channel it, we're going to end up doing nothing and something shallow, right? But if you're able to channel it, I think it can be a very, very powerful tool. So for me, that was it, right? Again, I was curious. The one thing that I knew how to do was swing a hammer. So I figured I'd buy a property to rehab, remodel, and then fix it and resell it, right? So I did that. When I was going through that process, I found out about other stuff along the way. So I found out about wholesaling, for example. That was another thing that just kind of caught my attention. I was like, okay, this looks good. And I think that one thing that I learned in my previous business was I was forced to learn how to systemize my business. Everything I do, time allocation and big on time blocks and that sort of thing, right? So just every time I would pile something new, I would make sure that I was able to dedicate some time to it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, okay, no, right now, like my docket is full. So what that did to me is put that sense of overwhelm. It mitigated that emotion. I think a lot of times that's really overwhelm is what kills the dreams. Mm-hmm. It's just like, oh man, I'm feeling saturated. I have no clarity. I don't know where to head from here. So, as far as, drive, I think it's just, taking bite size, stuff as you go through the process, and consistency will do it.
Well, and I think you have to do that in the, little steps. They talk about taking baby steps. And I think we have to, in order to grow, I mean, we have to fall down the stairs a couple of times before we figure it out.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's not always the shiny, we're going to get to the top real quick.
Yeah.
And so reading over this, I mean, you coach, you have your own brokerage, you're wholesaling and fixing, what do you think, drives your confidence there to continue building not just one business, but you're building multiple businesses?
Opportunity, really. It's as we go through the process, right? If we stay stagnant, I think if we stay stagnant on just one strategy, we will get comfortable with that strategy and inhibit growth. Like that's just by nature. That's what happens, right? If we're feeling too comfortable, like we own the space. In my opinion, it's time to look at something, outside of it to continue the growth. And I feel like at this stage in my life, and even for the last 20 years, I've been at that stage where I want to grow and continue just building. And it's more of a sense of the pursuit of the accomplishment as opposed to reaching the accomplishment.
Right.
So I think that's huge. One thing that has been a really, really big factor in getting me through the tough times, from a mindset standpoint, from a self-belief standpoint, has really been the people that I keep surrounding myself with intentionally, right? So I'm on a couple of masterminds, built great relationships with people who are, some people are 2 or 3 steps, ahead of me. Some others are, 20, 30 steps ahead of me.
Right.
But I think it's important to borrow perspective, right? Anytime you listen to a podcast, you listen to a different conversation, you're borrowing perspective from a different individual. And it's not just about, picking up some context and saying, oh, that's cool. It's about taking that and then thinking about it for a second. And how can I turn this into a tool? And how can I actually practice it if it suits, my path? So I mean, that has been huge, because I can tell you now I have the awareness, right, that I can deal with some stuff that I was not able to deal with 10 years ago, from a mindset standpoint. Yeah.
Now you have actually a statement that I wanted to read here because I love what you say here. It's your less business, more profits.
Yeah.
I absolutely love this. You want to explain what less means?
Yeah, less. So it's again, it's to me being systematic. I think the freedom is in the systems, and not that I'm a super analytical type of person, but I understand the value of it, right? If I can put together something that's lean, that's effective, that's strategic, and that's simple, people will use it, people will execute, and I can start delegating and automating the business, right? And I mean, we take that across traditional real estate. I do that in my wholesale investment business, in my fix and flip business. But that's what the acronym of LESS is. It's lean, effective, strategic, and simple. And those are, I mean, I think there are 4 core principles that apply very well to anything that we're doing, right? If we take on a new project, okay, I want to make it lean, I want to make it effective, strategic, and simple. Strategic, it makes sense where you're headed. Simple, if it's 3 steps instead of 30, people are going to implement, right?
Yeah.
Accountability is higher. Lean, I mean, you don't want to do redundancies or make things heavy. And at the end of the day, you want to make sure that everything's effective. So
Well, absolutely. But I love how you use the word lean.
Yeah.
I that just kind of drew me in, because you have not only that, you have this amazing quote that I absolutely love that is now on my wall. Hustle is a season, not a business strategy. I
love it.
freaking love that statement. And so, I mean, there's, how did you come up with that?
So, I mean, it took me years to realize, right? I think it's easy to start. If you're a bootstrap business, you probably can relate to this. I mean, I was 100% bootstrap, meaning self-starter, no funds, and time was my equity and that sort of thing, right? Going through the process, and I think it's easy to fall into this. We develop a like almost like a chip on the shoulder, where like I'm a hustler, right? I'm gonna hustle through anything. I'm gonna make it happen because I have that hustle. What happened to me, I was around 26 years old when I got burned out, absolutely burned out. My drive, my motivation, just my willingness to even come in and to work was out the window. It's because I was hustling 24/7, and I was just not, I wasn't thinking long-term, right? I wasn't thinking, the systems, accountability, and KPIs, for example. I was not running it like a business owner. I was running my business, which at the time had 40 plus employees, as a hustler. And it's a tool. It's a great tool if you're a solopreneur, but we have to change. I think we have to switch the mindset from that hustle mentality to that entrepreneur mentality, where systems become important, where empowering people around us becomes important. We're borrowing, again, perspective and motivation when ours is a little low becomes important. As a hustler, we usually tend to think like, no, I got this. If it's going to be right, I'm going to do it myself. And then we, get to the bed at night, we're beat up from the struggles of the day, but we're feeling proud, right? It's just not sustainable. Realistically, it's not sustainable. So hustle is a tool. I'm a very avid believer in that. And I mean, as far as keeping that for the long-term, business strategy, it's you're going to get burned out. So it's good to find ways to cut the learning curve, to get to a space where you're systemizing your business and leveraging, right, time and talent for that.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Coming from, I mean, I burned out from the short sale season back in 2008. I did that for several years.
Yeah.
And delegate, after that whole experience, delegate became, was definitely in my systems. There's got to be someone that can take over from here. So coming from, that business strategy standpoint, what would you tell someone that's just introducing themselves into the entrepreneurial space? What is some of the tips that you would give a brand new entrepreneur?
There's going to be a lot of doubt at the beginning. One of the things that we get hungry for real quick is clarity, right? Like, what's my path? What's my direction? There's going to be mental struggles. 90% of the battle is going to happen, in this, 6 little inches of real estate that we have between our ears. And it can be a very, lonely type of place because your problems as an entrepreneur are not widely understood. So, for example, if your significant other is not an entrepreneur, she's just going to see you struggling, but not necessarily understand what the entire thing feels like, right? Or how heavy things can be. Find good people around you. Like, it's going to be one of the first things that you need to do. Like, even when I coach and I bring students in, I tell them, listen, we have to build up your power team. Who is going to be your power team? And your power team, it's not just your money partner or your lender, right? It's not just the financials. Who's going to be in your power team for mindset? Who's going to be in your power team for, hey, listen, I have a level 10 question that I need to get to or talk about. Who can I reach out to? Right. So it's important to build those relationships around us. And it's incredible how much faster we start moving. That'll be number one. Number two is it's easy to get in motion. The difficult thing often is going to be consistency, sticking with it, right? Make sure that you time, like, you break down your day, and there's set up what I call them non-negotiables. Think about what your non-negotiables are every single day. Stick to those, and always generate new business every single day. Like, don't get caught up and I'm thinking right now I'm almost like on the real estate track, right? But I think it applies to every business out there.
Mm-hmm.
We'll find a listing, we'll find a seller, we'll find something, and then we'll spend 2-3 days, figuring out how to cater to this seller so we can get the thing under contract and whatnot, right? What happens to new business? What happens to those, at least 2 to 3 hours of new prospecting that could have generated more stuff? That's important. It took me a while to figure that out. So, I mean, I would plant those seeds early on.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Now, I know that you have the CEO Pulse. Now, is that just the podcast, or is there something more to it?
No, so that's I own a couple of different companies. One of them is CEO Pulse, and that's my organizational psychology practice. So I consult in businesses in general, different verticals, and then I coach in real estate as well. So that falls under my education branch, which is CEO Pulse, and that's also the podcast. So yeah, it encompasses a couple of things, but they're all at the end of the day, they're all in alignment to empower entrepreneurship. That's the one thing that happens under CEO Pulse.
Now, do you just coach your agents, or do you coach outside of your brokerage that you've built?
I have a real estate wholesale coaching program.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, when people join my brokerage, of course, there's stuff that goes on in there. But yeah, I have the coaching program. The real estate coaching program is open to anybody.
Okay, let's dive into that a little bit, because coaching, I mean, I think every agent out there should always have a coach.
Yeah.
And so, you've got that, you do a lot of psychological, which I think, we're our biggest critics. We
Yeah.
also, will beat ourselves up if we're not where we think we should be.
Right. Right.
And so, and then you coach on the wholesaling side. So you're teaching, agents or even other entrepreneurs, I would imagine, how to wholesale.
Right. Well, I mean, it's just a good segue into it. For example, we'll market for properties direct to seller all the time, and I mean, I can't tell you how many referrals we get for listings and buyers and that sort of thing. So it just one kind of feeds the other. So it's a good model. And then I mean, I think it's one of the lowest barrier or lowest entry to I'm saying that wrong. Barrier to entry industries out there, like the space of wholesaling. You don't need to have a real estate license to wholesale real estate if you do it right. You need to know how to stay in compliance and that sort of thing. That's where coaching comes in. But I mean, you have the opportunity to make thousands of dollars on deals and properties that would otherwise would not be able to. They're not sellable. So we're not looking like one of the stigmas I think in the wholesaling space is that people think that they're like we're not going after the properties that can be listed. Does that make sense? You have, I mean, there's so many properties that are in heavy distress, physical distress, right? And I mean, we've seen it 1,000 times where you have, hoarder houses and, that sort of thing. They're just, beat up properties. There's no way they're going to sell in the MLS. And then a lot of times there's the sellers can't afford to put money into the houses or anything like that. So anyways, we come in, they get paid out and we get the wholesale deal through and if that doesn't work, right, like we can always talk about how can we have another conversation about perhaps a listing appointment or if you're going to be buying something after this, what happens after that, right? So there's a lot of ways that I think the two strategies intertwine. Most of my agents actually do wholesale stuff as well, which is pretty cool. So yeah, we're always generating deals within the brokerage.
Yeah. That's awesome. Now, just for the audience that's watching that may not understand what wholesaling is, you want to give a little briefing on what wholesaling real estate is?
Yeah. And thank you for checking me on that. It's no, so wholesaling it's really, I mean, it's the process of finding motivated sellers, right? Sometimes people need to sell from 1 week to the next or 2 weeks, or the timeline is not there to list the property and go through inspections and all that stuff because they got relocated. A lot of people get divorced. You have probate stuff. You have tax liens, foreclosure, properties. I mean, it's just a time crunch, right? They waited too much. Now they have to do something with the property in a matter of a week or two. We find motivated sellers, people who need to sell the property, not necessarily, they want to sell the property and they can list it. That's always going to be a piece of advice that we give them. Hey, listen, you're going to make more money if you go down the MLS. I mean, it may take a little bit more time, but you're going to end up in a better, spot. And if they have the time, I mean, that's always the better route. However, again, when people don't have the ability to repair the property, go through inspections or stuff like that, they end up selling to us. Now what happens is that as a wholesaler, you're not buying the property itself, you're negotiating the contract. You get a buyer, a purchase agreement in place. Now you have vested interest in the property, right? You have vested interest in the property, and then we look for an end buyer, somebody who's going to come in and fix it and rehab it and do whatever they need to do, or buy and hold it, and whatever their strategy is. But we connect the two. We connect the seller and then we connect the buyer, and we sell our vested interest in that contract for an assignment fee. So assignment fees, you're looking at $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. They buy the contract from us, and then they go on and they do their thing with the property. So so we become this we fill the gap in that marketing space, right, for the sellers as a wholesaler. But what we're selling is the actual vested interest in the contract, not the real estate
itself
of it. Yeah.
Well, and really, I mean, there's such a misconception here because you're really out there helping other people solve a problem that they wouldn't otherwise be able to solve.
Right. 100%.
Because you guys give the bad rap of taking advantage when it's really you're truly not. You're actually helping solve a problem that people don't have a clue what they're doing.
I do keynotes and presentations all the time, we always end up talking about, okay, deals and case, studies and whatnot. I can't tell you the last time I bought a property that was ready for the MLS.
Right.
I mean, at this point, I've been over part of over 1,200 transactions, and yeah, it's, I mean, when you have to walk into a house wearing a hazmat suit,
Yeah.
that's gonna sell in the MLS. Like there's the stress there. You know what I mean? But yeah, you're right. There is a stigma. Often like, normally people see it as like, no, you're taking advantage if you're negotiating a property. What you're doing is you're doing the math. You're figuring out how much it's gonna take for the property to get fixed. You need to give the end buyer, leave some meat in the bones for the end buyer, right? There's an investment there, and then we get paid for our assignment fee. But we put a lot of money into marketing in terms of cold call. Like, for example, I have a cold calling team, right? We do text messaging, we do direct mail, we do all kinds of just pay per click. So we spend money in the front end to generate leads, and then have the ability to have these conversations. I mean, it's really a volume game. So I think that's kind of like in terms of the stigma. I think that's where the missing piece is.
Absolutely. Now, I know that you're a busy guy, and I don't want to take up too much of your time because I appreciate you being on the show today. But I do have, if you could describe the difference in your life from 5 years ago till now, what would you say the difference is?
Wow. I think I'm doing a lot of the similar stuff that I was doing back then. I'm just doing it way better. A lot more of it and way better. I think the think was a lot smaller 5 years ago. And actually, I started getting into masterminds and just, hanging out with higher level people at around 2017 or so, 17, 18. And my thought process, my perspective, my think has gotten a lot bigger since then. I've tapped into a couple of shiny projects and whatnot, and then ended up coming back to the stuff that I enjoy doing, which is empowering entrepreneurship. But I think the thing has gotten a lot bigger. The effectiveness of how I do business a lot better, and just the overall vision is a lot clearer. So I don't think it's necessarily about jumping back and forth between projects and okay, what's new, right? A lot of times is okay, cool, I've explored enough, I've gone wide enough. Now it's time to go deep enough. And I think over the last 5 years, I've been able to do that a lot better. So
that's awesome. Now, you've mentioned masterminds. Do you find that it's an important thing to dive into? Because I mean, I'm a part of masterminds myself, because I never want to be the smartest person in the room.
Oh yeah.
And so, what would you say the importance is of those masterminds?
I mean, the conversations that happen, especially, I mean, not necessarily, from the keynotes or the presentations that are happening, when people are on stage or up in front of the room, right? There's a lot of great nuggets. Those are like lessons, but really what happens, I think the magic is when people break into sessions, and then I don't know, you're having a drink after lunch or whatnot, and then you get to have this really one-to-one genuine conversation with somebody else, and then you guys end up collaborating, partnering up. I mean, I think that's really the X factor of masterminds, right? When you go to a mastermind, you can't just sit in the back of the room and then pray that people will hover to you. You have to actually have conversations with people. And the crazy thing is that I used to feel so inadequate. I would walk into these rooms and I would see people who I know they're killing it because they've been killing it for years, and I've read their books, and I've been an avid follower of groupie, right? And they're sitting on the seat next to me in the mastermind, and we're just collaborating at the same table, and I'm intimidated. There's stuff that I know that they don't know, right? So we all have that X factor. We all have that level of contribution that we could put on a table. And I think we often forget about that. So if you're going to a room and you feel highly inadequate, it's a good sign, right? It's a good room to be in, but don't feel like you have nothing to offer, because there's always going to be something. I mean, you may be a lot more creative than the person who's crushing it next door, and they want to tap into your creativity, right? Maybe you want to tap into their processes. Maybe you want to tap into somebody else's network. And that doesn't happen unless you put yourself out there. It really doesn't.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think, personal growth is it's a daily thing that
Okay.
we need to work on. I mean, because you're constantly growing. When you quit growing, you're dead.
Oh yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So one last question, and you've kind of already answered this a little bit, but it's one that I always ask.
Mhm.
And what have you learned from this game called life?
I don't know what I don't know.
Thank you. I love that statement.
I just don't know what I don't know. I've been a victim of my own smarty pantiness for too long, and then you figure out, like, I mean, there's just a lot of stuff that I don't know, and I don't know what that is. So I mean, it's just, it puts you in a good spot for learning. I think a good spot for understanding new things. And at the end of the day, we can't empower people. We can't have the impact that we want to have. At least, I'll speak for myself on this. But if I'm stagnant on just the three things that I know about life, like, I just don't know what I don't know. So
Absolutely. Now, for my audience, if they want to reach out, you are located in Arizona,
I'm in Phoenix. Yeah,
in
Phoenix.
Phoenix, and we'll make sure that we have all of your platforms in the description below so that they can reach out to you. Um, what is something that you're working on right now that, if there's someone in my audience that's watching that could actually reach out and help you?
Um, I'm breaking into commercial real estate. We did a pivot. I mean, I've done a lot of commercial deals in the past, but not as a business structure, business model. So we're breaking into commercial real estate, warehouse, office, medical, that sort of thing. So that's a pretty exciting project that we have going on. It's growing this year, and then of course the coaching program is getting more and more traction. So those two areas, I think, are taking up a lot of the attention. Everything else
Wonderful.
I
Wonderful.
mean, everything else is humming, right? But it's somewhat systemized. When you wake up in the morning, the first thing that comes to mind is usually the thing that you're the most excited about. Yeah. So work wise, like, those two are covering.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for your time, Rafael. I appreciate you coming on and sharing your knowledge. And we'll make sure that we have your info attached to wherever this broadcast is located so that they can reach out to you.
Thank you
But
so much.
I appreciate it. And until the next time, we'll see you on the next Real Estate Power Chat.